I could not wait to get out of prison because I was tired of getting told what to do. And then you get out here and the whole entire world wants to tell you what you can and can't do. Put the same effort into your recovery, your success, your reentry that you put into your addiction.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining us on the Reframe to Reform podcast. Our mission is to have the difficult conversations about how we can reframe the way society thinks about those who have been justice involved. We know change is possible, and above all else, people do not lose their innate worth once they have been behind bars. I am your host, Callie, and I am honored to be joined by special guests who have been directly impacted by the criminal justice system. So join us on this adventure where we speak candidly about the topics that matter most and challenge some of society's most common biases so that we may grow together. Let's get started. Hello and welcome. I am so honored to welcome another wonderful guest to the show today. Please welcome George Nolan. He is currently working within the reentry space in a variety of roles, as well as he is currently at New Freedom as the Director of Marketing and Outreach. George, would you like to share a little bit about you?
Yes. First of all, thanks for having me here. This is really cool. You and I actually we work together, but we actually just met you and your family at Incarcerated, and that was pretty cool. So yeah, it's definitely great to be on here. The reason I really like doing stuff like this is just showing that real sustainable change is possible for everybody. I have a fancy title now at New Freedom, right? And that's all great. But at the end of the day, I'm a peer support. That's where my heart and my soul is. I don't care where my education ends because I'm still currently attending school. I'll always be a peer support. So being able to work at New Freedom as a lived experience professional in a different role and get people to come to be aware of our facility, it's pretty rewarding. But the thing about a lived experience professional is you got to have that lived experience, right? And for me, I've been to prison. I did 17 years in prison. I know the stories. I've heard them, the childhoods. The one that I use when I'm talking about stuff like this, someone told me, and I have his permission to share it. Someone told me that he was 9 years old. He went to a Dodgers game with his father. His father was doing something in the driver's seat. He said, "Dad, what is that?" And at 9 years old, the man he loved the most in the world gave him heroin for the first time. He put it in a little cap and poured it into his son's nose. I did not have that kind of a childhood. I grew up in a great family. If you want to talk about stability, my dad has literally lived on the same street his whole entire life. He bought the house across the street from his parents. And so had the same job for 50 years. He was a volunteer firefighter for 50 years. Granted, in those situations, things can still occur, but for me, they didn't. Don't get me wrong. We all have our little ups and downs, but I had a pretty great childhood. The issue was I always felt like there was something that was wrong with me. I didn't fit in. I didn't feel like my family they didn't give me any reason, but I just didn't feel like I fit in there. I didn't feel like anybody liked me at school, even though I had a pretty decent group of friends. I'm still friends with a lot of them today. It was just this internal dialogue I kept having that I'm never going to be normal, whatever normal means. I'm never going to fit in. I didn't know what it was. I went to school and I hated it. I felt like the teachers were kind of teaching me to be like them, and I didn't want to be like them. I just didn't know what I wanted to be. Well, my whole family's cops and firefighters. My father's a firefighter and my son's a police officer. Kind of skipped a generation here for obvious reasons. But when these thoughts and this self-talk had just built up, my escape from my family, because they were too strict and overbearing and I didn't fit in, was to join the United States Marine Corps. I don't know how on any planet that makes sense if you're looking to escape a strict household. But so I went to the United States Marine Corps, looking for that, be a part of something bigger than myself, camaraderie, brotherhood. I was on the waiting list for the New York City Fire Department. Pretty much had my whole life mapped out. I knew what I was going to do. But when I got to my first unit after we came back from Kuwait, the drinking really started, and it really became something that was weekends and then Thursdays through Tuesdays and just escalated. And every weekend, as a lot of young Marines do, or as I'm just going to talk about myself, as we did, as I did, every weekend we'd go out, we'd drink, and we'd fight, and we just watched that same pattern on repeat. And eventually, like unfortunately, a lot of us know, you go out and you get in enough trouble and enough fights, somebody's going to get hurt. And somebody got hurt. My friend ended up shooting somebody at a club in Irvine, California. I was arrested for accessory to attempted murder, and I went to jail for the first time with a very serious charge. It was a terrible experience. I'd never been in trouble before. I was a Marine. You talk about shame and guilt and all this other stuff. Um, I'm a huge accountability person, so it's hard for me to say this now, but at the time, I had very little involvement outside of being in a fight. And I'm not minimizing because somebody got hurt, but I had gotten in a fight. What he went and did with a pistol and shot into a crowd and all this other stuff, I didn't know about it. I didn't have anything to do with it. Um, that was kind of my mindset. The Marines offered me an other than honorable discharge while I was in the county jail. And I said, no, I didn't do anything. I got in a fight. I'll take my lumps for that. But so they came down. I ended up getting a misdemeanor after a few, but this is after me sitting in jail too and missing this time. You're in the military. You can't miss that time. So they put me on some kind of weird leave. I ended up with an open-ended felony, which ended up turning to a misdemeanor, and the Marines court-martialed me. And I went to court-martial and I won, and I was shocked. But because I had that low-level felony before it became a misdemeanor, I'd kind of lost my whole purpose. Plus, I got diagnosed with PTSD, which a 21-year-old Marine, I did absolutely nothing's wrong with me. I don't have any marks on my body or my face. I can't see it. I'm fine. But if you look at my life on a map, it turns out I wasn't fine. So I went home from the Marine Corps. I started bartending, which is probably one of the worst decisions I ever made in my life. Started bartending, found cocaine. And if you ever want to do cocaine with almost nobody ever noticing, being a bartender is a really good way to do that. Because I could stay up all night, sleep all day, make a little bit of money. And that's sustainable for a little while, but addiction's going to take a toll. And you're going to, even if it's a perfect schedule, eventually it's not going to be on cocaine schedule. So addiction took over. I had a baby on the way. My wife at the time, our life obviously wasn't going great. So I told myself I was going to come to Arizona and I was going to get sober. And that's honestly what I believe. I thought that's what I was doing. Looking back in retrospect now, it was just another one of those lies that I told myself. And what I did was I ran out to Arizona where I had no one who loved me, no one who cared about me, no one who knew me. And I can come out here and do as much drugs and sell as much drugs as I want. And that was how I ended up in Arizona. That's what I did until the state of Arizona had a problem with me doing and selling as much drugs as I wanted to. They sent me to prison for 3.5 years. Prison at that time, and prison has changed. I don't care what's on the news. I don't care what is getting promoted out there by this advocate or that advocate. The prison environments today are 1 million times better than they were 20 years ago. 1 million times better. They're probably 2 or 3 times better than they were 5 years ago. There's a huge amount of growth going on in there. Sorry, I want to be very vocal about that. But I went to prison in 2005, and that's kind of where I learned how to really be a criminal. I learned about burglaries and auto theft. And I look back now and I remember actively seeking knowledge on how to further my criminal career. Like going around asking questions, learning, absorbing. It blows me away like what my mindset was. I had just the thing about the Marine Corps is it teaches you to be a really good follower. You're going to follow the rules. You're going to follow your orders. You're going to be a part of that. That's one aspect of it. And because I had lost my purpose, I didn't know who I was. I didn't have a set of values, and the values that I was saying were not defined by any dictionary. I talked about honor, loyalty, and respect. While I cheated on every girlfriend I was with, stole cars, robbed houses. I didn't even know what those words meant, but I'd say them out loud. And so when I got into this lifestyle, and in prison, there's a hierarchy and there's a structure and there's this and there's that. I started listening to those people and following orders, and I absorbed their values. And that's who I thought I was for a very, very long time. And that cost me 17 years of my life incarcerated. So I did a 3.5. I got out for about 6 months, went back and did a 7.5. I was out for about 2 years. And that's not because I was doing good for a long time. In all honesty, it was probably because of poor police work, but or overburdened police. But eventually I went back to prison for that 10 years. And even that 10 years wasn't enough. I got to prison. It was everybody else's fault. I never had a chance. All the stuff that I would tell myself, zero accountability. I had a needle in my arm the first chance I got. I was extremely active in the prison culture, which is not a good thing in the culture I'm describing. And it culminated in me getting my rights read in 2018 for a seriously violent charge in prison. And I wasn't suicidal, right? I wasn't where my mindset was at, but I was using a needle that everybody else on that unit was using to stick into my arm. It's extremely dangerous. So I definitely wasn't trying to live. But in that moment when I got my rights read to me, I really didn't care about the consequences. Like I just said, using dirty needles, I didn't care about going home. But the one emotion that I felt was relief. I was glad that person was okay. I was glad they were still here. And it wasn't, it made me kind of realize, like, if I'm feeling guilt about this incident, maybe that's not who I am. So who am I? And the yard I was on was a super high 4-yard, extremely dangerous yard. It's definitely not a yard that's conducive to personal development and growth. But I wanted to get better. I didn't know what better was, but I was like, I just want to be better. And the only thing I knew how to get better was reading books. So I kind of made a commitment to myself. I was going to stay out of the gang stuff. I was going to stay out of the violence, and I was going to do drugs less. It's like the worst recovery plan in the world, to do drugs less. We hear it all the time. But today, that skill that serves me so well because that plan worked for me. And in September of 2019, that was the very last time I got high. I had I don't know, probably 6 months to a year of sobriety prior to that. And I said yes one day when I didn't have my guard up, and I used, and the guilt and the shame that I felt with it, I was just like, I will never feel this way again. And that's how I was able to get sober. So I was reading, getting sober. I didn't really go to 12-step meetings there because 12-step meetings were the guys who weren't using. And in prison, on the prison yards I was at, the guys who weren't using were usually the guys who sold drugs. And it's just a different environment there. So I didn't see any kind of validity to that or integrity. And I was just like, I'm just going to kind of do this on my own. And I am the last person to promote doing anything on your own, because that is definitely not sustainable. But that's kind of the cards I was dealt in the early part of my recovery. But then I got to a yard. There was a little bit of recovery stuff going on. There was a peer support credentialing through the department, which was the very first quality thing that I saw that they gave us. I'm not saying that's the case. It's just in my experience. It was a great training. And I went through it, and I learned about motivational interviewing. I learned about boundaries. I learned about ethics. I learned about HIPAA, all this cool stuff. I didn't even know what it was. Like, I thought I was going to be like a therapist. Like, I don't need this master's degree or anything. I'm just going to learn it in 68 hours in a peer support. But it was either that or running 12 steps. That's kind of what my mental image was of it. But once I got through this training, fundamentally understood what it was. I was going to take the things that I've been through, and I was going to help people avoid going through them or getting to where I was at, and just walk alongside them from, a service-based point of view. In almost one instance, my whole past, which I carried so much shame and guilt, and don't get me wrong, I am extremely, I do feel guilt over what I've done in my past for sure, but I can't live in regret and shame and be mired down by that. It's not going to serve anybody any good. So what I do today, in order to honor any of that wreckage, the harm that I've caused, whether they want it or not, is I'm the best person that I could be, and I help other people to avoid a similar path. Whatever's happened in the past has already happened. There's no going back to that. But if we can reduce harm in the future, uh, that's all I have control over, and that's what I want to be a part of. So I did my last 5 years or last 4 years as a peer support. I created programs. I started a behavioral health, a BHPP program, behavioral health paraprofessional program at the Second Chance Center. That's grown into their most popular program. We had started a victims impact class, a reentry class, because believe it or not, they didn't have one at the Second Chance Center, but they do now. Uh, did so many cool things, and I walked out of prison with a job at Peer and Family Career Academy, and I was training in behavioral health, continuing education. It's kind of like a live Relias training, which I think is a lot more entertaining. But so I was doing that, and this is something else that I tell guys a lot. We have these grand plans in prison, and a curriculum that I was able to get introduced into Arizona State prisons was called Hustle 2.0. And I love it to this day. I still go in every Friday night and run a curriculum loosely based off of their stuff. We still use their books, but I try to meet people where they're at, and what's in the book isn't where they're at. We're going to talk about where you're at rather than what's in the book. But I still love the book. I love the content. And they had reached out. They offered me a position as, their national correctional sales manager, something like that. A nice title, a significant pay increase. And I was like, oh, it's awesome. This is my dream job. I can't wait. Peer and Family, they were so good to me. This is actually one of their shirts. Haley, their ED at the time, when I got out, she understood reentry needs. This woman who I didn't even know literally took me to Target, and she's like, this is going to be weird, but I know you need socks and underwear, so let's get some. Like, she was literally able to. Yeah, she's so awesome. She's over at Home Inc. now as their CHO over there, Chief Housing Officer. But yeah, so I felt so supported, but I still have to. I'm early in my reentry. I have to do what's best for me. Let me give her a call, have this tough conversation. She's like, okay, I support you, whatever you got to do. And I went to Hustle 2.0, and I worked there for 4 days. And I was like, this is not for me. Like, the company's great, the people are great, but that role was basically just driving revenue growth, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I'm not going to be able to fill my cup. I'm not going to be able to fill my cup doing this. I knew it. I knew it was only going to get worse, especially if I did to start making some money. I was going to end up trapped in that. And I had to cut the cord. And 3 months out of prison, being unemployed, not the best feeling in the world, especially when I just left a pretty decent job, which there's no way I could call her back after. I probably could have, but I just wasn't going to. And that same day, New Freedom called. And they said, hey, we have this outreach manager position open. We see the stuff that you're doing out in the community, the footprint. We'd like you to come down and see if you're a good fit. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come check it out. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm like, please give me a job. But I get down there, I get to the front desk, and I start hearing the conversations. I mentored with New Freedom for 3 years with Denise. So I knew there was good people down there. I knew it was a good program. I had seen great results from it, but I hadn't experienced yet. And all these guys that look like me with their tattoos, they're talking about hope and jobs and empathy. I remember clearly this guy telling this other guy, he's got tattoos all over his face. He's like, bro, you got to have empathy, man. You got to be able to understand where they're coming from. You can't get mad. And I'm like, this is amazing. I want to be here. This is great. So I ended up taking that role as the outreach manager at New Freedom. And now I've been promoted to the director of marketing and outreach. So it's I love what I do. I love the company I'm with, and I get to work with amazing people like you. So I'm grateful.
That's amazing. And I mean that full like 180. So going back into, you were talking about kind of when did that shift start? Because you hit on empathy now, right? And then there was like that signifying empathy when you were in, where that kind of shift started happening. Do you know why? Or it just kind of out of the blue came up?
So the the impetus, right? The momentum for this change. I wish I had that cool, like happy. Oh man, I just saw the light. I went to a meeting. It was great. But mine's like the opposite. I saw the dark, and I was like, man, I don't want to be there. That's not who I am. Who am I? And it was just I got to make some changes, and that's why when I talk to my community, my peers, I don't shy away from the dopamine stuff. I don't shy away from it at all. It's actually it's unbelievably awesome, and I use that term for myself. But it's an absolutely unbelievably awesome skill set. I tell a story all the time. I was leaving the gym, and this young man that I worked with was walking by the front of my car, and obviously I'm in marketing and outreach because I got a big mouth and I like to talk. And I'm a little bit loud, and he's walking by my car, and I made a statement. I was like, "Oh my god," or something a little bit more colorful. And he looks over. He's like, "Hey, it's not as bad as you think it is, bro." I'm like, "Man, I don't think anything. I'm good. Like, can I help? Do you need anything?" He's like, "Well, I just got to get a job." And I'm like, "Man, I've heard that, man. We helped you get a job at the Second Chance Center, but if you want to get in my car, I'll take you to treatment." He's like, "No, I'm good. I just need money for a bus." I said, "I'm not going to give you any money, but if you want to come and get something to eat, I'll take you to get something to eat." He's like, "Nah, I'm good, man." He walked off. And he told me during that conversation he had everything he owned in a bag over his shoulder. It's a story I tell in the prisons all the time. I'm like, "Hey, do you think you got high that day?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." I'm like, "Okay, so his behaviors are phenomenal. Goals are trash. His goals are where he's struggling. If you were willing to live outside of a building, walk across Phoenix in 110-degree heat to get to a job, to get to school, to get to your family, to do any of that stuff, imagine what your life would look like. And chances are you're probably not going to have to do that. Right? So if you take that level of commitment and put it into something meaningful, you will literally change the world, and you're going to blow everybody else out of the water. No one's going to be able to keep up with you. Nobody else understands that level of commitment that it takes to be an addict. They don't get it. And it's a good thing for those people that don't get it, but it's also an advantage for us. So lean into that. I tell people all the time. I get up about 3:30 in the morning, go to bed whatever time at night. Like, oh man, that's you're doing too much. I'm like, at least I get sleep now. Right? At least I get to go to bed. I eat food. I get some rest. Things are good. And that's the other thing, man. We want to talk about stigmas. I could not wait to get out of prison because I was tired of getting told what to do. And then I'm thinking, yeah, once I get out, no one's going to tell me what to do. And then you get out here, and the whole entire world wants to tell you what you can and can't do. I was told we couldn't get a fingerprint clearance card to level one while on parole or probation. Well, I got it while I was on both. It's in my wallet, wherever my wallet's at. But was able to get that. Yeah, told us we couldn't buy a house unless you had 2 years of income to prove. Oh, I bought a house in 8 months out of prison because I found a mortgage broker who's familiar with our community who was able to use my 45 cent an hour job in prison to prove income. That's what I was making 2 years ago. It's not what I'm making today, but it still shows that I've been working. Having the right, yeah, absolutely, it's phenomenal. I graduated college. I'm now enrolled at GCU. Somebody else told me as felons we could not go to Grand Canyon University, which I'm like, I didn't really listen to that one. But the amount of things that people tell us that we can't do, it's not that I can't do it, it's that you can't do it. You're trying to pick up your obstacle and put your obstacle in front of me. I'm good on all that. If it's important to me, I'm going to figure it out.
What has helped you kind of navigate and figure all of this out? Because you've figured out a lot since you've been out, right? And it's been rapid growth. So, what has really helped in that?
So I'm a huge advocate. Obviously, always recovery first, right? You got to take care of you. Nothing else matters. And when I talk about recovery, I'm not just talking about substance use. I'm just talking about whatever, being 100% in there. For me, this stage of the game, my recovery is all about perspective. I get to choose how I look at everything. But very closely behind that, as far as if you're trying to get somewhere and improve yourself, better your life, better your career, better your family, is your network. It's the people in our communities here. Oh, don't hang around those people. The people that are like that's not that's kind of the low level version. Yeah, who your immediate group of friends are. But everybody in your life should be adding value. I tell guys all the time, if you're hanging out with people that you consider are losing, as far as not being successful, not happy, that kind of stuff, I promise you, you're not going to be the only one who wins. You can't do it. Maybe one in a million can. I've never seen it, but every single person in your life has to add some value. I joke around pretty often, like I don't have any friends anymore. All I have is mentors. I get to learn from everybody and hopefully teach them a thing here or two. Um, as soon as I got into outreach, there's a guy named Frank Eisenhower. I heard his name everywhere. Integrity, great guy, this and that. As soon as I got into outreach, first thing I did, hey Frank, my name's George. I'm at New Freedom. I got this outreach job. I don't know what it is. I can talk about that now. Can you introduce me to some people? Within 2 weeks, I'm sitting at lunch tables with all the outreach guys from all the facilities around here, uh, building my network because I made one phone call and I asked for help. Um, I learned that while incarcerated. I got a mentor. My first mentor ever was Brett Matosian, a guy who runs a reentry by design thing here, helping people get out, kind of the same space, but more of a kind of like a resource broker, like a social worker without the license kind of deal. Uh, Connecting everybody with resources. And while I was in, he had me read Start With Why, University of Success, Man's Search for Meaning. It was 7 books. I can't remember them all right now. But having that person giving me stuff, certain books to read. I didn't really like the University of Success, but he gave it to me, asked me to read it. There was some accountability there. I read it because I don't like it. It doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. And I started to learn a lot from him. And now I'm to the point, like obviously professionally, sometimes you can't let the people around you know what you don't know, right? Because it's just a professional setting. You got to figure it out, especially if you're expected to know it. But like when situations like that arise, first of all, I work for a company where that situation is very rare and I can pretty much share whatever I need. But also to be respectful of everybody else's time that's also working, I can reach out to somebody and say, hey, they gave me this. This is what I'm looking at. Do you know how to, I don't know, say an Excel spreadsheet or something? Get a little class on that or whatever that looks like. But our community, and I hear it all the time, man, I got this. I can do this on my own. I'm fine. But if you look at successful people, and I'm not talking about wealth, I'm talking about people who wake up genuinely happy every day. If you look at them, they all have mentors. My brother's got an MBA from 30 years ago. He had a 75% academic scholarship to Loyola University. Just a brilliant dude, had a senator or two at his wedding. And we went to coffee the other day and he tells me, he's like, yeah, I got to get out of here. I got to talk to my mentor. Or I got to schedule my mentors on the calendar. And I'm like, I got to ask you a question, dude, because we're obviously kind of at different stages in life. We've always been, what are you using a mentor for? And he's like, what do you mean? Like, I want to get to where they're at. And it's just a glaring thing to me. I think when people are at their most vulnerable, that's like the hardest time to ask for help. When you're doing good and life's cruising along and you start to see the value, you get some assistance, you get some help. It's really easy then. But when you're 49 years old, getting out of prison, don't have a pair of socks, your kids haven't talked to you in forever, your wife hates you, your parents won't let you home, all that other stuff, I don't want to tell anybody about it for one. So yeah, I got this. And the truth is, you don't. There's a million people out here that want to help, that want to walk alongside you. And I tell people, like, we love what we do. And you and I barely know each other, but you don't get into this business, work here, do a podcast, do this kind of stuff if you don't love what you do. And every time you don't ask us for help, you're taking away from us the one thing that we love to do. So ask us for help.
I like that. You're like, come on, we're waiting for it. With that, right? So that openness to help, what would you say for like society? What can we shift in society's perspectives to help people better understand whether it's the struggles, the stigma, whatever it is, you're like, what can we shift the narrative about?
So I have an awesome privilege. I get to go in and train DOC staff, right? I get to work alongside their trainers, bring the lived experience thing in there. And with DOC, there's some that are really bought in. There's some that are fake bought in. And then there's some that aren't bought in at all. And they're going to let you know they're not bought in. And so I get to kind of see that, that interesting mix all the time. And it's great. And I spent some time with the old school mentality because I get that too. I 100% get it. But it all comes down to community safety. And especially when you're speaking about victims, people that I hate to use that term, but people who have been impacted by crime. When you're speaking about people that have been adversely impacted by crime, they want punitive measures. They want the dingy, and not all of them, but most of them want the dingy, dark cell. That's where you're going to sit for 5 years and feed them garbage and treat them bad and, beat them and whip them kind of mentality. I'm obviously over exaggerating a little bit, but we're not far off. And then 5 years later, open the door and tell them to go out and be reformed. That model doesn't make sense. Especially you want to talk about empirical data. Look, since the beginning of time, we've been running prisons, and we're beginning in the United States, we've been running prisons and only getting worse. I just saw the stats of what we're responsible for as far as mass incarceration, and I can't remember, but it's staggering. For the worldwide percentage what we have, it doesn't work. If this was any other business model, they'd be out of business. It would be over. That's starting to happen now, right? They have an art studio they put in there. They have a yoga studio. They're the second chance centers. They have the recovery communities in prisons. What happened has happened. There's no going back to that. But if we're talking about safer communities, if we're talking about, and here's the thing, people are coming home from prison. 96% of the people that are incarcerated are coming home. They are going to be your neighbor. I want my neighbor rehabilitated. I want to live next to someone like me. I don't care if he's got a bunch of tattoos or whatever else, but someone who's going to help me with my trash or help me catch my dog when it runs away, which literally just happened the other day. That's who I want next to me. I don't want the guy who just crawled out of a dark, dungy cell, who hates society and feels victimized and had no time to develop him, develop as a human being while he was in there. Because if you look at like Maslow's hierarchy, very, very bottom of that, you got your food, air, water, right? Your basic necessities. Prison gives you that. The one above that is safety. Prison, in most cases, doesn't give you that. Even if you're on a safe prison, you never really feel safe because anything can happen at any time. And it's just, you carry that hyper awareness around with you. It's really, really hard to want to move up, right? Let alone, family relationships and all that other stuff. But to get to self actualization, it's definitely a more difficult process. The more we can foster an environment where that's possible, and it's currently happening at those RSAC communities, they're phenomenal. The stuff that's happening in there is absolutely amazing. People that people that don't understand what's going on, people that want the punitive, want the punishment, all that other stuff. I get it. I absolutely get it, right? Because there's people that I want punished too, but that's also very selfish of me. If we want safer communities, we have to truly rehabilitate. It's not about coddling anybody. It's about giving opportunities to get better, to come back out, to be a part of society. We absolutely can change.
Absolutely. I love that. You're talking safety has to start in there, right? Because if there's not safety there, how can there be safety felt in the community when you're thrown back into it?
Absolutely. If I'm terrified for my life, fighting for my life, hating authority, hating law enforcement, solving problems, which is a very, very culturally accepted thing to do in prison, solving problems with violence. He owes me $5. I'm going to punch him in the face, and I'm going to get patted on the back for it. right? Like everything that's out here that's aboard is embraced in there. And don't get me wrong, like I said, it is changing, but that's, basically the culture. You can always fight and no one's really going to have, we have to change that environment. And the way we change that environment is through education, through yoga, through breath work, through volunteers, through correction officers have a job. Their job is to make sure the prisons are safe and go home to their families. I get that. But us as the community, we have to, people talk about change. I see these advocates on TV. Oh, this prison, they should go in there. When's the last time you've been in a prison? I'm in there at least once a week, if not 2 to 3 times a week. And I get to see what these men and women, now I've been in my first Perryville visit, so I can say women too now. But I see what these men and women are doing in there to promote change when it's brought there. When the opportunities are there, we don't want to live that way. We just don't believe that we can live another way. And it's up to us, the community, in conjunction with the Department of Corrections, to show that we absolutely can live that way. We absolutely can do that. We don't deserve it. I don't believe in people deserving anything because we have to be willing to do the work. But we can do the work to get whatever it is we say we want.
And the community can stand by to also support that to make it feasible.
Absolutely. I've gotten out of prison and I don't know. I remember in 2005, there might have been a bunch of community support. I didn't know about it. I don't think a lot of people did. But I see what it is now. I go to the parole orientations almost every week. There's more community volunteers and partners and collaborators in that parole orientation than there is people sitting in the seats. It's a true story. True story. At least on the Phoenix side, I do have to get out to Mesa, but at least on the Phoenix side, and it amazes me because when I got out of prison in 2005 or 2007. You go down, you see your PO, he tells you blah, 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 blah. You leave, you get your first dirty UA, you're back in prison. That has completely changed.
The narrative is shifting, which is huge because it's reminding people like, I know that's what it was. And it's shifting away from that. So, but that catch of like, how do I be open to believe this, right? Because if the other experience has been there, it's a challenge to accept this as the new norm.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm going to encourage you. Like, if you don't believe in it, come down here and be a part of it. Figure out a way to be a part of the solution instead of saying because when you talk about second chance hiring, then the reason for that is literally legalized discrimination. Some people are judged and excluded and not allowed to do this, that, or the other because of an action they committed 15 years ago, right? I heard a story the other day about a father who stole a car 17 years ago, but he can't go on any school trips with his kids. And it's just, and I get when children are involved, it's we have to be safer, but this is a 17-year-old thing. There's states where if you have a felony, you can't be a barber. But come back, I didn't know when and most of us didn't know when I signed my plea bargain. I was also agreeing to 44,000 other laws that were targeted right at me on what I can and can't do when I get out. But that's another thing that we get to use as a strength if we want to, right? It can force us for entrepreneurship. Okay, I'm not allowed in there. I'm just going to build my own thing. Because I can't tell you what you can and can't build, right? I'm going to build. I'll just build my own. So I always encourage entrepreneurship as well.
Well, and now my brain is going and I'm like, oh, we're just going to have a plethora of entrepreneurs coming out with new like fortified businesses. And that will be a really cool cultural shift to see because like you said, the accountability piece that is so prevalent is there. And that's a strong foundation to get to witness. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Right. Built on unfortunate and not okay circumstances, but yeah.
The thing is, like, there's a resource for that too. This right here I got from the Arizona Small Business Association. They helped me get started, helped me get my podcast started, gave me a mentor. It was a 6-month program, gave me, I think, $9,000 total to invest into my company, which it resulted in podcast equipment, some training, development of books, that or curriculum. So it's there's a resource for that too.
That's awesome. Very cool. What else is there that you want people to know just in general about this space or how we can better support one another?
So if you feel strongly about this space, obviously, if you feel strongly like we do, you're going to be involved. You're going to be a part of it. If you're completely against this space, at least come check it out. Right? If you have these biases, if you see this, I'm the director of marketing at New Freedom. Reach out to me. Right? I will take you on a tour. I will show you what happens there. And the other thing is, New Freedom's not the only game in town. There's other places that are doing quality work and providing services, in different areas. There's opportunities for change, and you can come down and see it firsthand. It's very easy for you to say, screw that guy, he'll be back anyway. But when you say that, you're saying, screw that guy's kids, screw that guy's grandkids, screw his parents, screw his neighbors, forget everybody else. It's not just about that person. When you're talking about us, it's not just about us. It's about that community out there. It's about our families. And if you want to talk about change, be a part of change, or at least take action for some kind of solution.
Like the nonprofit's name is Reframe to Reform, is there anything else we should be doing to help reframe as a society to kind of make that reform a more prevalent reality? Because, like you said, we're seeing it happen, we're seeing the changes come through. Are there any other gaps that we can work on filling?
See, I have an interesting mindset on that. Obviously, there's places like you and places like New Freedom, people like you who are bought in, for supports. And some of the most valuable stuff I've learned is not from lived experience. Some of the most valuable stuff I've learned are from my friends who have an education, who taught me about perspective. My friend Tori's a family and children counselor or something like that. And she taught me how to look at things, and that changed my life. That absolutely changed my life. But at the end of the day, nobody's gonna care about me more than me. So what am I doing about it? How can I help? How can I be a part of it? What can we do? And the second that we come together and we start taking accountability and responsibility, I hear all the time in the prisons, DOC doesn't do anything for us. Well, that's not true. You can get a bachelor's in there now. You can get an associate's in there now. You can get credentialed. You can go to the RSAT Academy, you can go to Second Chance Centers. You can learn the code. Hey, that excuse is over. You're just saying nonsense, but I'm going to accept it. The DOC is doing nothing for you. Awesome. What are you doing for this community? Well, what do you mean? What are you doing? How are you making this place better? You live here. What are you doing to make this place better? And the more that we can push that mindset and let people see, this is our responsibility. This is up to us to get to where we want to go, and not just to climb over that, get to where we want to go and forget where we came from, but turn around and help the next guy. Each one teach one, and just keep moving forward.
I like that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, George. Is there anything else you want to share?
For the men and women that are coming home and getting started, I got news. You're probably going to be shocked, but it's going to be really hard. It's supposed to be hard. At the end of the day, man, just outwork everybody. Show up for yourself, do the work, put the same effort into your recovery, your success, your reentry that you put into your addiction. If you get up earlier, stay up later, whatever it is you got to do that work. Be the best version of you for 90 days. Just for 90 days. Give it all you have. I don't care if you get 4 hours of sleep a night. Whatever you have to do, work your butt off for 90 days. You'll change your entire life. And you're going to build habits. You're going to build discipline. You're going to build a resilience and a mindset that you're unstoppable. Obviously, sleeping 1 or 2 hours a night is not going to be sustainable for long, but maybe do it for a little while. Outwork everybody. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be so worth it when you come through the other side.
And like you said, you're living proof of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.